We all witnessed the space race during the Cold War of the 20th century between the US and the Soviet Union, but the space race is not dead yet. It is still alive. Now the space race has been happening between the US and the China over the moon to hunt the super weapons that can destroy this earth over and over again. Previously, the battle was between the Apollo and the Sputnik, but the today's battle is among the Saturn V and the Long March 5. Yesterday's space race was for the national security, but the today's scenario is totally different. Today is all about the natural resources as well as the national security. The natural resources in the space worth trillions or even zillions of dollars. The natural resources have poised to be the subject of contention between the US and the China. Both superpowers are aggressively vying for the space dominance, and at the centers of the rivalry is the ongoing race for the mining the moon for the valuable minerals. The space race between the US and the Soviet Union actually happened under the common set of rules set by the United Nations. The US and the USSR never broke the basic codes of the space. But the today's scenario is totally different. This time around, the world superpowers cannot even agree on the basic principles to govern the next generation space activity. The lack of cooperation between the US and the China on the space explorations is particularly dangerous in an era where the cosmos are being crowded. Today's space scenario is totally complex because of arrival of the more and the more private players. Private players like the Elon Musk SpaceX, Jeff Bezos Blue Origins, and the Chinese private space players like the Lin Space, Orion Space, and the various others. Things have become compounded because of the distrust between the US and the China. And this distrust grows because of ideological differences over the pandemic, political repressions, and the Ukraine war. The inability to cooperate on the space risk not only an arms race, but also the clashes over the extracting the potential hundreds of billions of dollars worth of resources on moon and elsewhere. In today's world, everyone is getting attracted towards the moon because of the enormous amount of known and the unknown amount of resources on moon. The world is again ganged up against each other. This is the same way they used to do during the Cold War time. In the post-Cold War period, the countries having the shared interest on the ground began forming the space bloc to pursue the specific mission objective, such as the African Space Agency with 55 member states, Caribbean and the Latin American Space Agency with the 7 member states, and the Arab Space Coordination Group with 12 Middle Eastern states. These groups enable the nations to collaborate closely with the others in their bloc. However, the bloc also compete with one another. Two recent space blocs, the American-led Artemis Accord and the Sino-Russian Lunar Agreement, are examples of such competitions. The Artemis Accords was launched in October 2020 with an aim to send the first woman to the moon by 2024, and this current membership has reached to 19. And the Sino-Russian bloc's aim is totally different. Their aim is to launch a permanent lunar space stations to harvest the moon's natural resources. Now we need to discuss the main aims of these two rival space blocks. Without discussing the aim and the goal, we won't understand the rivalry between them. As I said, the Artemis is being led by the US Space Agency NASA, and its primary aim is to send the first woman and the first colored person on the moon. In this mission, NASA will use the new technologies to study the moon in the new and the better ways. This program has been designed with the several purposes. The purpose of searching the moon's water and use it. Study the moon in detail to discover its mysteries. Also learn how to live and work on the surfaces of the another celestial body, whereas the astronauts are just 3 days away from home. Most importantly, test the technologies we need before sending the astronauts on the mission to the Mars, which can take up to the 3 years round trip. As the moon is a good place to learn the science, so that is why we are using it as a test bed for our technologies we will be using in the Mars. The moon is a place to demonstrate that the astronauts will one day be able to work away from Earth on the Mars for the long period of time. So, the Artemis' ultimate mission is to use the moon as the test bed, then harvest the natural resources for the moon and the Mars. If your previous thinking about the Artemis was idealistic, that the missions will be used for the peaceful purposes only, without using the commercial interest, then you are wrong, very, very wrong. We humans need the resources, and everything is linked to the humans' economical interest. And in this case, the Chinese and the Russian Lunar Research Facility is pretty straight about it. Maybe their missions do not have any takers yet because of their Chinese link, but they are purely doing it to harvest the natural resources of the moon. There are another reasons that the missions is not having any takers, because if China might be able to send any human beings to the Mars, then China might claim the Mars as their own, the way they are claiming the whole South China Sea. So the things are pretty ironic and complicated for the lunar research facility. You know, China and the Russia always have suspicions regarding the US-led Artemis Accord. China and the Russia always had suspicions about the West since 1945. Russia played this game against USA and the West during Cold War. So now it is the rise of China. Because of that, China became the greatest threat for the USA. So today's our focus will be all about the Chinese suspicions, not about the Russian suspicions. The China's problems about the Artemis Accord is that, according to the Artemis Accord, the nations, those who are the part of this program, will have the designated safety zone in Moon. And the USA and the Artemis partner, these exclusive areas are the way to comply with the obligations under the Outer Space Treaty, which requires the countries to avoid the harmful interference in space. However, for the China, it is an US policy to grab the land on the lunar surface. The China basically wants a UN-based policy which will give them the leverage to make the ties with the friendly nations countries. Anyway, the Beijing suspicions are understandable as the US Congress passed the resolution in 2011 prohibiting the NASA from interacting with the Chinese counterpart. The USA even banned the China from taking part in the International Space Station. This move prompted the Beijing to build its own Tianyang space stations, which is slotted to be complete this year, making the China the only country to operate its space stations of its own after Russia. Russia used to operate during the Cold War time. The China also became the first country to send the probe to the first side of the moon in 2019. And the last year, it became the only nations after the US to land the rover on the Mars. Now the burning question is why everyone is getting attracted towards the moon. Knowing the fact that we cannot live on the moon, we simply cannot. Because the moon do not have the physical atmosphere. But the moon has something that will going to solve the human energy demand. And what is that? That is helium-3. The moon have abundance of helium-3. We humans simply wants to mine to quench our energy thrust and the power thrust. Because of that, China released a white paper on its space program in January, according to which it plans to launch an robotic lunar missions around 2025. The chief designers of the Chinese first lunar mission, Yu Peijiang, said that the China may be able to send the astronauts to the moon for the first time by 2030. We are talking about the helium-3. We want it because it is an isotope potentially useful as an alternative to uranium, to the nuclear power plant, because it is not radioactive. So the world won't have radioactive waste. The radioactive waste problem will be solved overnight. It might be able to bring the helium-3 to Earth from moon. Helium-3 is emitted by the sun, which is carried by the solar winds throughout the solar system, but it is repelled by the Earth's strong magnetic field. That is why we do not have the helium-3 on Earth. Whereas the moon, where the magnetic field is weak and the atmosphere is extremely thin, helium-3 is deposited in significant quantities, making it 100 times more abundant on moon. The fusion reactor technology itself has been struck with various obstacles for the decades. But some argued that a significant supply of the helium-3 could be the game changer for this kind of reactor, the fusion reactor. Now the Chinese state-owned media house, the CGTN, said in the 2019 that the moon is sometimes referred to as the Persian Gulf of the solar system. This is the inception of the Cold War between the US and the China regarding the space. And the experts are believing that the 5,000 tons of coal could be replaced by about 3 tablespoons of helium-3. So you can simply imagine that if that much of amount is only that much of amount of helium-3 is required, then it will going to solve the problems regarding the energy on Earth. In an interview with an BBC in 2013, the top scientist O. Young estimated that the moon's helium-3 resource could solve the human's energy demand for around 10,000 years at least. And according to the Chinese, the moon is also home of abundance of titanium and uranium and the other natural resources. The Chinese researchers are already exploring the moon's rocks that were brought back to the Earth in the late 2020 by one of their Chinese lunar missions. At last, I would like to have my own say. And you may not like it or you may not found it attractive, but I have to say it. We humans are always greedy since the inceptions of the economy and the economical relations between the countries. And out of our greed, we are hurting this earth and the outer celestial bodies to quench our unquenchable thirst about the energy, thirst about the natural resources. We are now mining the asteroids and the other alternative bodies, other alternative celestial bodies, and planning to mine the moon and the Mars. And I think we have to solve our own problem over here because we have the abundant amount of resources to solve our own problems. To solve our problems, we need not to create the another problems. And above all, we need to contain our greed. We need to contain the use of the economy as an excuse for the every problem, to solve the every problem. For me, the economy has become the necessary evil for the earth. So this has to be solved. This has to be solved in such a way that will be peaceful. If we will going to create the weapons and the other kind of things to do the new things, then it will create the havoc on the earth. So now the questions. The first question is, which of the following phenomenon cannot be observed on the surface of the moon? The first option is rising and setting of the sun. The second option is solar eclipse. Third option is motion of comets. Fourth option is twinkling of stars. The second question is, which of the following planets rotates in a direction opposite to the directions of the earth rotation? The first option is Mars. Second is Jupiter. Third is Venus. Fourth is Mercury. So this is the end of the topic. So if you have any queries regarding this topic or any other topic, you can contact me through my email address, which is tuhin.power.academy@gmail.com. So if you found this topic attractive or found this topic fact based, then please subscribe my channel. Thank you very much again.